Welcome to the ASW Vault. In April 2023, Ben Sadeghipour joined us to talk about collecting bug bounties and building communities. Ben's curiosity and diligence helped him find success in finding bugs. He also built up a community of like-minded security researchers in order to help others refine their skills in testing web apps. Bug bounties shouldn't be the first step in an org's AppSec program. There's a lot of development practices that need to come first. Secure design doesn't emerge from a list of flaws, but participating in bug bounty programs is a great step in learning AppSec basics. All you need is a browser, some curiosity, and maybe some advice from Ben. Enjoy ASW 237 and stick around. New episodes are in the queue.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
From the Security Weekly Vault, it's the show to learn the latest tools and techniques to understand DevOps applications and the cloud. Your trusted source for the latest AppSec news, it's time for Application Security Weekly.
Ben is a hacker, content creator, and public speaker. He has helped identify over 1,000 vulns in companies such as Apple, Amazon, Airbnb, Snapchat, Lyft, and the DoD. Prior to pursuing content creation full-time, Ben worked as an education and community executive at Hadrian and HackerOne. Ben also loves creating communities and conferences. He has helped organize conferences like HacktivityCon, the Red Team Village at DEF CON, and has also created his own online offensive security conference, NahamCon, to help connect like-minded security professionals and hackers. Hello, Ben. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me. Nice to meet you guys both.
It's wonderful to have you here, and we've covered the boundaries of bug bounties a little bit, but we have yet to have an expert or someone as illustrious as you to come and talk about bug bounties. We haven't even gotten you a T-shirt, so I apologize for that. But hopefully we'll make this time worthwhile for you.
Absolutely happy to be here.
So one of the things, you are well known in the bug bounty community, and I want to come back to talk about the communities in general and some of your work on the Red Team Village and NahamSec. But let's start off with bug bounties. This is something that I think you made your name in. You made some good money in as well. What grabbed you? What attracted you to bug bounty in the first place?
It's not so much of a what grabbed me. A while ago when I was in college, about 10 years ago, I was just, roaming my college halls, just, not knowing what I wanted to do. I went to a computer science degree, and computer science really wasn't my thing. Becoming a developer and writing code really wasn't something that I enjoyed. Our school had a program that was mostly around the Federal Reserve and the government recruiting, students from our school, but I also didn't think that was the route for me. But I met somebody there, and I met a few friends through that. And then one of them just said, "Hey, I've noticed a little about hacking. You always have stuff that looks like hacking on your screen, or you're learning about hacking, but why don't you make money from it?" And back then, bug bounties were just becoming a thing, and I had not heard about him. And I just gave him this look of one, who's going to hire me, and B, I don't want to make money doing something illegal. That's not what I want to do with hacking. And he just said, "Why don't you go look at bug bounty? Just type in bug bounty and see what comes up." So I went home, typed in bug bounty. I think this was right after Yahoo had just switched over from those T-shirts, when they had the bad publicity of I found a bug and they offered me a $12 gift card. That was just over, and they were doing actual bounties. I think they were just before they onboarded to HackerOne. And as a kid, I really used Yahoo a lot. I was like, oh my God, I know how Yahoo works. I know how their applications work, what applications they have, what sites they have. I wonder if I can find bugs in them. And it took me a while, it took me a couple of months, and then I found my first bug. And then I kept going, there's you want to call it the grind or whatever you want to call it, but I stuck out, hours and hours and hours. And then eventually I got three $3,000 bounties back to back in the same couple of minutes. Nice. I submitted it. It took about a couple of weeks, and then same day I see my phone going $3,000, $3,000, $3,000, and I go, oh my God! I'm in college. I live in an apartment that's the size of my current office, right? And $9,000 was what could have paid my rent for a year, more than a year probably, at the time. And I ended up buying a vehicle with it. It was my first car that I purchased on my own without anybody's help.
Nice.
And it was a car that I wanted, but it made me go, if I can buy a car with 3 bounties, what else can I do with this thing? Can I build a career? Can I build, something around it? Maybe, fund something else. Maybe, become something that gives me a job. And that is that's the pivoting point for me with bug bounties was that I went, okay, what else can I do?
That's amazing. And we do want to come around to what you've done with the money and what else you can do. But still on that aspect, you're in college, you're getting started.
Yeah.
You did have a CS background, sounds like. And I suppose,
Yep.
What did you do? You read the OWASP top 10 and became a security expert and you could hack all the things?
Yeah.
What got you started to like how to figure out how to do the fun hacking?
Well, the thing that I say today, I will talk about the past a little bit, but what I say today is there's no shortage of resources nowadays.
Hmm.
There are so many cool online platforms that didn't exist in 2013. Hack the Box was founded in 2017. Try Hack Me was founded in 2019. And Pentester Lab was, I'm not sure when, but it was in the same timeline. I want to say 2016, 2017. So these companies weren't around. People that are watching this, you have it good. You have resources you can use. Mine was mostly through 2 things. One is I call myself relentless. I really wanted to learn how to hack better and do it professionally. So I took everything that I could. There was the damn vulnerable web app. I went after it.
Okay.
Metasploitable. I went after it. And there were vuln disclosure programs, not bug bounties, but vuln disclosure programs. That's see something, say something. You find a bug, they don't pay you for it. But I needed to hack. I needed to get better. So I use a lot of VDPs and I recommend it. I know people in the comments are probably going to come after me, the bug bounty hunters who are making money that say you shouldn't give away your bugs for free. I agree. But if you're trying to learn something and you need a playground, vuln disclosure programs are a good place. So I used I remember I was in a QA class that I took in college. It was supposed to be for QAing applications. I was sitting in the class with laptop open taking notes, but I was hacking. I pretty much hacked every hour I could. I found a way to, and I don't recommend this, but I started learning calculus on YouTube. So I took the 6 hours of class and shortened to 2-hour videos. And I was using the time to skip class to do hacking because I really wanted to make it so badly, right? What I did was a little bit too extreme, but I know hackers have done this similar thing. A lot of people that are good at time management. I wasn't good at time management, but if you're good at time management, you're living at home, your responsibilities aren't as much. You have time.
I want to back up real quick, Ben. You said something that just caught my eye, and it's not on topic, sorry, but you had a class in college that was QA?
It was literally about QAing applications, yeah.
Wow, cool.
It was a QA class, and I just sat there. I was like, this is just, why am I in this class? And Image Magic had that RCE came out, and I'm in the middle of this class. I found an Image Magic vulnerability in a bug bounty program, and I'm just like trying to hold it together in class. But it's just the beauty of it, right? I mean, a QA class, technically I'm not doing QA Borg, but it's kind of similar, right?
It is. And you mentioned, and that's an important distinction between VDPs and bug bounties, and money is like one of the major distinctions there, and compensation. And you mentioned from Yahoo, in the span of a few minutes, getting $9,000. That I think translates to a pretty amazing hourly rate. But you can also spend a lot of time and then report something, get the dreaded dupe, or someone else has reported this, or as well as you weren't compensated for the time and effort you put in that. You were compensated for what the perceived risk of is what was found. So tell us a little bit more how that works and how to, one, honestly, maybe not become frustrated about that or have that be a discouraging aspect in these programs.
I don't want to defend what that bug bounties pay, the bug bounty pay thing for the time, but I'm going to give you an analogy. When you first graduate college, you're not going to get a senior job, right? You're not going to get a job that's going to pay you, 150, base with whatever else you want, right? It's going to be a $70,000 super junior just to learn and, get started, whatever, $70,000, right? Bug bounties are the same. You're not going to find those good vulnerabilities right away. You're going to find things that are more common. So you're not going to get paid as much. The difference becomes, so if you look at the time that I was hacking, there were more hackers, less programs. Like, there was the ratio of programs to hackers was still very small. In comparison today, you have way more programs and way more hackers, right? So the ratio is still about the same. The hackers who are finding vulnerabilities that were hard to find were the ones that are getting paid a lot of money. And one of the things that I talk about in my videos is in my with my community and videos is that stop looking for things that are good in theory, because with bug bounties you're not doing theoretical work. Is this thing, is this certificate expired in theory? Can you do something with it? Sure, but can you actually show me right away, right now, you can damage the infrastructure or the users of this company? No, right? So less theory, more impact is what I say. And I work with a lot of people that I mentor. As I look at the bugs that they find, it's rate limiting and things that are not super exploitable that the companies are either not going to care about. Sure, you can rate limit some random endpoint, but so what, right? This is not to be harsh, but it's just more of the reality of bug bounties is the impact. So sure, you can find a rate limit that could probably cost them a lot of money because you're sending SMS, for example, a lot. That's a different story. So it's just the impact of the things that I see that people aren't getting paid, are just going for the low-hanging fruit. They're copy-pasting payloads, or they're just relying on tools without understanding how these tools work, right? And of course, that's, in the beginning, it's going to be hard. That's why you have to make it work. But I just want to get perspective of you get what you put in, just like in any aspect of life. Bug bounties is the same thing, but you want to find more impactful things. So instead of going and hacking and finding those, low-hanging fruit, the rate limit vulnerabilities and the best practices, put that time into learning cross-site scripting better. Even though that's all by itself is also low hanging, but it's to have so many different flavors of it. It's so much harder to find DOM XSS, for example, that if you could find those, you're finding things that the scanners are missing because everyone uses the same scanners, the newer hackers are missing, and so on.
So, and there's also both sides of the equation there. There's also the programs being clearer about what they reward, what's in scope. So we'll come to that in a second. But since you are talking on the researcher side, tell us a bit more about, what are some good ways or ways to avoid in terms of approaching companies? Meaning, like, you probably shouldn't open with, if the same origin policy were broken, then this bug could be used to blah, blah, blah. That's kind of what you were saying. So there's definitely communication and how do you describe the impact? Or what are good tricks, or not tricks, what are just good tools, techniques, communication skills that researchers should have for, submitting and describing vulns?
Yeah, of course. On the researcher end, I always tell myself, like, even the students, I go, ask yourself, so what? If you can't answer the so what, like, if you can't tell yourself so what in a private conversation within your inner voice or your brain or whatever, there is nothing there. If you're unsure, that's a different story. When you go, well, and if I could push the limits a little bit, I could do X, Y, and Z. That's a different story. But if you cannot answer the so what, that goes out of the way, right? But with communicating with the bug bounty program, one, avoid, first of all, like, don't go hack on a company without permission. Like, if you don't have a bug bounty program, if you don't have a security page, they don't say, hey, we want to hear from you. They don't want to hear from you. So avoid that. That's the number one. And then two is, if you're going to submit a vulnerability, don't assume because somebody who works at a company understands everything about that product, because A, they could be new. That product may not be theirs. It could be an old product. It could be another company. It could be acquisition, whatever that is, right? Don't assume anything. Assume they know less than you. There's been times when I've hacked on a bug bounty program that I knew more about their product, even though it was a single product, because how much time I had spent on it, right? They're like, oh, we didn't know this functionality existed. So assume that you don't know anything, because a big size company like Airbnb, they're pushing out code every day, right? Like, you can't assume they know everything. So you want to assume they don't know anything. Explain, this is what it's supposed to do. This is what it's supposed to not do. This is what I was able to do, and this is the impact of it. This is what I could have accomplished if you guys let me fully exploit it. And if there's an exploit that you think you can do, but you are afraid of doing it because you're going to bring down the entire production system, trust me, it's not fun doing that to a company. Tell them, like, hey, by the way, I can either try it, or B, could you put this payload in your dev environment that I can't find, or try this exploit and tell me if it works, because I can do Y.
No. Yeah, that's basically collaboration is what I think you're touching on there. And I love the so what framing, because it's just a very direct way of saying, what's the risk? Like, what really would happen here?
But what's really interesting about that also, Mike and Ben, is, that same collaboration is, like, it's lacking within the companies too. And you could probably say in some cases that's why security vulnerability existed. But that what do you just walk through and how to describe that is like, man, I'd love different teams to be communicating with each other like that as well.
Yeah. And it also, like, With a lot of organizations, at least when I did a short amount of AppSec in my life. The one thing that I learned is that security engineers and developers had a hard time communicating.
Sure.
Because the security engineer is like, well, this thing is not working, it's broken, they're gonna get our data. And then the other day I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, how do I fix it? I needed to communicate with this other service. If I cut the communication, the entire app goes down, right? So being able to explain that to a security engineer and like, hey, this is what's happening, and this is what you guys should do, or this is what's happening, or whatever it is, helps them communicate better with developers to be able to fix the issue. So it's just the so what thing is it was a big game changer for myself, because I kept going, what can I do to this company's infrastructures or users? It's one of the other two, right? It's one or the other. It's either an infrastructure or the user data, right? What can you do with it?
Yeah, and I think that's a good lesson to kind of to piggyback on what John was saying on the organization side. You probably, the first step you take towards AppSec is probably not set up a bug bounty program. I suspect that's you're setting yourself up to fail. You're setting yourself up for noise. You're setting up a lot of disappointment for researchers too. So, what are some good ways that organizations can also approach either VDP itself or just bug bounties as well?
Do a few pen tests first. I mean, do a few good pen tests where they actually get some findings and give you a good assessment. Run some tools. I mean, hackers are going to run some tools, run some scanners, do some burp scanning and some of the other plugins that people use. And if you're going to run a bug bounty program, start small. You don't have to go big or go home. You just start a small bug bounty program with 5 to 10 hackers. My job at one of the companies that I work for, what we did was I came over and had a bug bounty program that it wasn't struggling, but it wasn't something that was huge on there, and they wanted to do more with it. And this is a huge streaming platform. And what I did was we just did 5 researchers, 1 asset, 10 researchers, 15, 20, and then add another asset, 50, added a huge asset, 100. And then by the time I left in that 9 months, and 10 months that I was there, we ended up having everything in asset with over 500 hackers in our bug bounty program. So it's just the small build up to it. Do small, see what your issues are, because the patterns of mistake can continuously happen in AppSec until you catch on to it. Fix those patterns of mistake, and then make room for new ones.
Now, one of the aspects of that too is that sounds like the excellent way to mature a bug bounty program, clearly. And you mentioned too, you've been around in bug bounties for at least 10 years. You're talking about some of the history of it. And I think you also realized that, you wanted to do something that wasn't illegal. And there's a long history in vulnerability disclosure that the responses come from the legal department. And it's very much like, this is the CFAA section, blah, blah, blah. Expect to hear from, law enforcement about what's happening here. And even today, we've seen some of these, some of that attitude still present. It's still not perfect. And I think I'm thinking of a recent case out of Malta. A couple of students actually were reporting a vulnerability. They wanted to do this, and they were trying to do this, it seems like, in good faith, but perhaps their communication came a bit wrong. And I think it ties back a little bit of it wasn't so much of the so what. They kind of described, I think, the so what, but perhaps they went around it in the wrong way. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that too, about how to engage companies?
Yeah, the biggest thing is, and something that I hear a lot from my community is like, hey, I found this bug in this company. I never heard back. And I ask them, well, do they have a page up that says we want to hear from you? And if they say no, I go, well, what did you ask? Did you say, hey, I have this bug, I'll give it to you for the bug bounty program? Or did you say, hey, I just have this bug? Or like, what was the conversation like, right? There's been times, where I purchased something and I go, well, that's weird. My order ID is an integer. I wonder what happens if I drop it by 1, right? And I drop it on 1 and I see there is something that comes out. I go, oh my God, I messed up. Like I should have, and I didn't check to see if that had a bug bounty program or whatever on disclosure, just curiosity, right? Mm-hmm. Would I get caught? Probably not, but do I want to do the right thing? Absolutely. So what I do is I email them. I go, hey, I just purchased something. Here's my purchase order. I wasn't doing this to hack your websites, but I just wanted to get this one product. And I came across seeing that you guys are leaking my information to other users by doing this. Could you please fix it so I'm also protected by this? I've never had a company say no to me with that language. And, I asked them, like, do you guys happen to have a bug bounty program that's private, hosted somewhere else that I could join and find more stuff for you guys? Like, is it a possibility for me to look at this, through a bug bounty program or a VDP? Because, it could be private. That's about it. There's a few times when I reported things and I didn't want anything and they gave me a gift card. I was like, oh, okay. Like, That's pretty neat. You have, $50 gift card, $500 gift card. I wasn't expecting anything. It makes it nicer. But when you go in, with legal teams, I'm not saying this is how it's supposed to be, but with legal teams, there is a fine line that is defined extortion versus a bug bounty. And extortion, no matter what you want to call it, is when you demand or request money. Demanding money of saying, hey, pay me for my time. That could come off to a legal team that's already with their guards up. That's extortion to them because you're just some random person on the internet that's telling them, hey, I found something in your products, pay me. And, we see all these extortion cases online with ransomware. Of course, everyone's going to be on a high alert. So that's a fine line of saying, hey, I did this, pay me, or just reporting something to them and going, hey, I love your products and I would love help secure it. Is there a bug bounty program you guys do privately that could contribute to? It's just, you can't say, hey, I want to help, but also give me money. Those two don't go together. If you wanted to help, your factor wasn't money. And I'm not saying people should do work for free, but it's just nobody's asked you to hack this company, even if it wasn't in good faith. So either, you don't report it because you're scared, or you report it and say, hey, if they gave me something, they give me something. And if they don't, you got to just walk away from it.
Yeah. And I think one of the things, it sounds too like you've done a great job with individually mentoring, because you're referring to people asking you, giving advice on individual reports. And I think that's a wonderful thing that you're giving back to the community. And you're doing that not just on one-on-one mentoring, but conferences. So we mentioned Red Team Village, NahamCon. Tell us more about that. Tell us what does it take to build these types of communities, and what do you focus on in them?
Yeah, well, NahamCon was, we spun up a conference called VersaCon. It was Virtual Security Conference. And it was me, the cyber mentor, Heath Adams, and John Hammond. I think Stoke was a part of us. A few of us just got together. But me and Heath were originally running to raise money for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I was asked in my chapter here to become, to participate for the Man of the Year, something like that. And we're going to raise money. It was some campaign that we're doing. There was an award, but we just want to raise money because we've seen how much money is coming out of bug bounty programs. $1 million hackers are coming out. We can raise some money, right? We got to be able to raise some money. So we did every money that we made from the sponsorships from all the companies went directly to the funds for us. And we ended up raising $58,000, right? Do you want to know when that happened? That happened through COVID. So when everybody backed out of donating to LLS, the community backed me into a way that I didn't even expect. I think $30,000 was from our corporate sponsorships. About $27,000 was from our friends donating. The hackers donating 5,000 here, 2,000 there, 1,000 there. People that were like, hey, we can't sponsor, but we give you $500 because it's a good cause, right? And the thing that it was a beautiful accident was we had set NahamCon to happen before the pandemic happened, before we all got shut down. We said we want to do it this week, which happened to be the first weekend that everybody was stuck at home. Timing. Right? So we had about 3,000 people, 2,500 people show up to this virtual security conference. And everyone was stuck at home, and it was entertainment for them. We were just entertaining people, and it was me and a couple of friends just being entertaining, right? It was just, that's all it was. But it made me think there is a need for virtual communities because out of those 3,000 people, a lot of us are very shy. I come off very outgoing, but I'm very shy, and I'm a shy person, but I push myself not to be that way. But the people aren't, right? The introverts in the world that don't want to go to security conferences, or the people that are in these remote cities and countries that don't have any conferences. What about them? What do we build something that they could contribute to, where they could just feel like they are a part of something, just like I feel like I'm a part of DEF CON when I go to DEF CON, or when I go to Red Team Village or AppSec or whatever I go to. I feel like I'm a part of this conference. Well, not everyone can go to these things because it costs money. So NahamCon I couldn't come up with a clever name. I'm just like, okay, I have Naham Sec, I have I had people making jokes of like Naham Fit, Naham this, Naham Tired. We were making these jokes. It's like, okay, let me just make a conference out of my name. So we made NahamCon, but this was just more of a, hey, make it completely free. We know companies want to contribute and they want to help grow this community. Make something absolutely free for the community where everyone can attend without an excuse from their phone on a streaming platform. And that's what we built NahamCon. And every year it's one of the biggest things that it's a big lift because it's a team of now two. It used to be a team of one, just me, but a team of two that organized NahamCon. And it's just mostly to build something that everyone gets to feel a part of, regardless of where they're from, regardless if they speak English. They can at least do the CTF, or they can be a part of the Discord, or they can come and watch talks.
Yeah, and clearly, one of the things you touched on there too is that bug bounties, especially, are very global. All you need is mostly a browser and a URL to go visit. You know, some application that does have a bounty program, and there you go.
Yeah.
With NahamCon very virtual, that's got to be different than the very in-person IRL, as the kids say these days, of going to DEF CON. Is there a different kind of vibe to that, or is there different topics that you approach between these two? How does that virtual versus in life kind of in person affect things?
Yeah, the NahamCon is an offline conference. It's live, but we call it offline. It's pre-recorded talks because the conference itself is a very small part of it. You know, a lot of to compare the numbers, last year's conference we had about 8,500 players for our CTF, but only about 13 to 1,400 people came to the conference to watch, right? So it's there's no different approach. We bring a lot of the people that are contributing to the community. There's a lot of content creators in the NahamCon. There's a lot of people that are writing blogs. There's a lot of people that are contributor who is contributing to the community. And within the last 4 years, I've never hosted a NahamCon where the CFP was open. This is our first open year that we have a CFP.
Oh, cool.
The speakers have always been invited. So we invite speakers. You don't get a CFP. You get invited. If you say yes, you just have to do your talk. And it's just mostly because when I created NahamCon, I was like, okay, what do I do to make this be something that I would personally want to watch? When you go to a B-side San Francisco, I love B-side San Francisco personally, to be honest, but if you go to B-side San Francisco or you go to like B-sides PDX, ShellCon, AppSec Village, AppSec Cali, the talks are, with the AppSec, it's a little bit more focused, but with B-sides, you have talks from Red Team to Bug Bounty to everything, right? Like, there's from code review, everything, but there isn't a single track where it's like offensive, just focused. And honestly, I like going to these conferences, but I won't go to every talk. But with NahamCon, what do I want to watch as someone who's organizing? So I'm going to invite people that I think are good. And people that they get mentioned in my comments. I go, oh, this is cool. I want to watch this live at my own conference. Hey, do you want to come and speak at NahamCon?
That's neat. And as you mentioned, that is part of what's, I think, creating that wealth of resources that bug bounty researchers have today. With the things that you're interested in, give us some insights, give us some tips. What does interest NahamSec in terms of these types of offensive security topics, whether it's just a really cool type of hack, a type of technique for finding a particular vuln? Is it about the communication aspect? What are some ways, if you went and tapped one of us, what would you be asking us to talk about to entertain you?
Anything offensive security that could help me from home to break into a company, whether it's a new technique, whether it's a new tool, whether it's a new research, something that maybe you can mass exploit everything in the world, right? Like you can find this vulnerability that you can identify. Anything that could help organizations either better than themselves with attacks or help the security research community. The focus for NahamCon is purely security focused on the offensive side. How do we break into things? How do we get better? And then it's not bug bounty. I've tried to kind of like pivot away just from bug bounty because I know a lot of security engineers who attend NahamCon now because they want to learn these techniques. So it's very much offensive security. How do we break into this company? Within a few steps or within a few hours or whatever it is, how have these companies have been hacked in the past?
Ben, you mentioned earlier on Metasploit, for example, and I think Burp is one of the go-to tools. Do you have a list of just the tools that are, everybody should know, or is there a language that you think everybody should know for scripting? Or I'm kind of skirting around the topic of how do you get started, or what are the skills that you need? And I'll say up front, I know a tool doesn't make you the bug bounty researcher. So that's some of the subtext of my question now that I made it explicit context.
Yeah, Burps is a great one. If you don't want to spend the money, get the community version or use Zap Proxy or Kaido, CADO. They're very good. They're pretty much a proxy tool written in Rust. I think it's written in Rust. Those are the three proxies. Learn a proxy tool regardless of what one you want to go after. Tool-wise, it's a hard one. Just like you say, you shouldn't really rely on tools. It's mostly understanding how these tools work before you go for them. But I use a lot of like recon tools. I don't use any recon frameworks. I just mostly use a lot of these recon tools like the Subfinders. A Mass is a good one. I use some HTTPX and HTTP probe for information gathering and finding a live host. Your Nmap to find open ports. I don't use any exploitation tools, if that makes sense. A lot of mine are just asset discovery and content discovery. And on the content discovery side, GoBuster, Ferox Buster, I think is for the other one, and then the most popular for bug bounty hunters are FFuff and dir search in Python. Those are the majority of tools that I use are those. I think I'm one of the people that does one of the few people that does a lot of their work manually, which doesn't seem to be a very sufficient way of working, but it's not very the best way. But it's what's worked out for me so far with bug bounties.
And that probably also allows you to find some issues that other folks don't find since you're going at it that manually. I want to pick your brain on and this is, you've been asked this I'm sure before, so I'm curious your take on it. You're hosting a conference where, as you said, ideally people are learning how to hack into a company from our chair here at home.
Yeah.
How do you separate that from the black hats? Is there, I'm sure you think about that, or I'm sort of curious from your point of view, how do you discuss that, or where does that sit with you?
I mean, that's the hardest thing, right? And no matter the conference, the research comes out at the end of it. Whether you do black hat, it comes out. Whether it's DEF CON, the clips come out, or the slides come out. We honestly don't have a way to do that with the hackers, and we vet who comes and speaks. So obviously, we don't have anybody with a malicious intent coming in. But it's very hard for conferences to be able to gate that kind of information from black hats. And I feel like the people that have these malicious intent or the cyber criminals are already ahead of the game with the things that, the research that's coming out that I've probably seen it, because a lot of the research that we bring to NahamCon, while they're new in the form of a talk, someone's tweeted about it already. Someone's, there's a CV that came out for it already and that sort of stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah. On that aspect, I want to ask too, there's, you mentioned NahamCon. I think we'll make sure we throw a bunch of these links into the show notes. What are some other areas that you're working on or that you would love to work on? And here I'm thinking of, obviously my mind, because of my background, always goes to web application security. But we've talked recently, there's been some fun articles on car hacking. Is there something that you haven't hacked yet that you really want to get into, whether it's physical, virtual devices, online APIs, mobile web? What's out there?
To be honest, I think this is going to be one of the weirdest answers, but I would love to sit on a physical pen test. I want to, even if I don't get to do it, I want to shadow someone. So if you're watching this and you want to invite somebody to be on your team for a couple of days and need a web hacker for that, I would love to sit on and just see a physical pen test. Honestly, because of bug bounties, I've been lucky enough to hack on a lot of products. I'm not very good at like hardware hacking or car hacking and that kind of stuff, but I've had the opportunity to learn from from others or see a little bit of this. But something like a physical pen test, just to see, I would love to see someone, social engineer someone for their badge, or see if they could use a bad USB or something like that. Those would be really, really cool. I think with today's age of like this, the flipper zeros and the bad USBs, those are the things that I want to learn how to use, just because it seems very intriguing, to be honest.
That sounds fun. So we'll have to figure out how to pixelate your face so they become less famous and less visible to help you out on those physical pen tests.
That'd be very fun, honestly. I would love to see, I would love to go to a company and see how they break into the physical aspect of it.
So speaking of breaking in, more people want to break into bug bounty or just this research, as you're making that distinction and trying to keep to that of just offensive security. Where can they find some more of your videos, or tell us what's some fun videos that you have coming out that they should be looking forward to?
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about my biggest goal with, I have a YouTube channel, I have a Twitch channel, but my biggest goal with the YouTube channel is that I want to mentor people on either finding their first vulnerability with bug bounty or just breaking into web hacking or hacking in general. My focus is web hacking because that's what I'm good at, but the focus is on there. And it's going to be a series of videos of going from like 0 to 1,000, 1,000 to 10,000 in bug bounties. And then also just, the recent video that I put out just recently was "You suck at hacking and here's why." And it's just because I've seen patterns of mistake of people doing the same thing. So it's a lot of one, calling people out on their stuff, because I feel like people want to do better, but they sometimes need someone to hold them accountable. But B, just really sharing my thought process, my experience of how I did certain things and how I became better at it. And if people want to learn hands-on, that's why I use my Twitch stream. And then I'm on pretty much on all social media platforms as Nahamsek. But those two channels are, built for mentorships. If you want to get started, if you're looking for a community to be a part of, not me alone, but Twitch has a lot of hackers who are streaming. There are some really, really good hackers on there that you could really connect with and find people in their chat to, become friends with and collaborate together.
Yeah, and you're clearly giving a lot back to the community through the mentorship, through the online conferences, the virtual conferences. So I think people would, I'm basically just saying that so everyone does come to watch your videos and benefit from what you've been doing to give back. You also mentioned "so what," so I love that phrase, but it's only 2 words. Ben, one of the things that we do is we ask all of our guests to describe AppSec in 3 words. So I'm curious, how would you respond to that?
So what's next? Is that technically 3 words? And I say that because I feel like AppSec is a never evolving thing. It's a never ending evolving thing. So it's always a what's next. So what's next maybe it could be, or what's next could be the 3 words.
So what's next? That works. I love it.
Yeah, because with bug bounties, the same thing. It's so what's next? You fix this, but you're gonna fix the entire patterns of mistake through your application, or what are you gonna do next to prevent it? So I feel like with AppSec, it's only fair to say, so what's next?
I love it. Once again, with something unique and different that we didn't expect. Thank you so much, Ben.
Of course, you got it.